In this beginner yoga class, we're going to build a strong foundation for a Vinyasa practice by linking breath with slow flow movement. So let's begin in a comfortable seated position. So maybe that means sitting in a cross-legged position. If sitting on the ground is difficult, then feel free to place a blanket or a bolster underneath your seat to lift your hips higher than your knees. Let the eyes close and start to tune into your breath. In yoga, we practice something called Ujjayi breath or yogi breath. So that's a long, deep inhale through the nose, and then a long, deep exhale through the nose. So you'll continue this breath throughout the rest of practice. So keep breathing on your own. Deep inhale, deep exhale. Keeping the eyes closed, on the next inhale, start to elongate through the spine, through the neck, all the way up through the crown of the head. And on the exhale, focus on relaxing through the shoulders, through the hip creases, even through the face. Start to blink your eyes open, and we're going to make our way onto hands and knees into a tabletop position. So we're going to align shoulders directly above the wrists and hips directly above the knees. From a neutral spine, start to sink the belly, coming into our cow pose. The chest starts to lift upwards towards the sky. The gaze follows, looking forward, maybe even up a little, as long as it's not crunching the neck. We'll take cat pose on the exhale by curling the spine, looking in towards the belly. The spine lifts towards the sky. On the next inhale, we'll start to arch the spine again, coming into cow pose. Really arch the tailbone and lift the chest. Use the core in your transitions, and on the exhale, we'll come into cat pose, reaching the spine up towards the sky, curling in. On the next deep inhale, make your way into cow pose. Really try to link your breath with your movement. This is a really wonderful tonic for your spine. And on the next exhale, make your way into cat pose again. 2 more rounds, so inhale, coming into cow pose, really arching the spine. Exhale into cat pose, curling in, use the core. One last time, inhale into cow pose. And finally, we'll exhale into cat pose. Slowly come back into a neutral tabletop position and start to walk your right fingertips toward the front of your mat, and then lift the right arm off of the ground, reaching it out in front of you, gazing forward. From here, start to walk the left toes to the back of the mat, and then start to lift the left foot off of the ground, extending the heel back, flexing the foot, so reaching in opposite directions, finding length in the spine. The gaze is forward or right down in front of you if that's too much on the neck. Deep inhale through the nose, and on the exhale, bring it back down to neutral tabletop position. We'll set up for the other side, so this time walk the left fingertips towards the front of your mat and then lift the hand off of the ground, reaching the left arm directly forward in front of you. And then we'll walk the right toes to the back and then lift the right leg up. So again, extending in opposite directions. Use the core, the entire core, to stabilize this position. Inhale, lengthen. And then exhale, go ahead and lower back down into your neutral tabletop position. From here, firmly plant your hands, spread the fingers wide, and distribute your weight evenly throughout the hand, and then tuck your toes, and we're going to make our way into downward dog. So you'll lift your hips up and then back into an inverted V shape. So the key in downward dog is to keep reaching the chest towards the thighs and to try to get straight arms and stretch through the armpits, through the shoulders. Eventually the heels will gravitate towards the ground. So if you need to take bent knees at first, that is a perfect option for a beginner. So start to wake up your dog or stretch out your dog, and we do that by pedaling the feet or bending the knees really deeply and sending the chest closer to the thighs, maybe wiggling the hips back and forth, whatever it takes to open up before settling back into your neutral downward dog. Nod the head and then shake the head just to release the neck. The neck should be neutral in your downward dog, so the gaze should be around your toes. Remember your breath. And on the next inhale, start to shift forward into plank pose. So you're aligning shoulders above wrists again, and we have straight legs, the quads are engaged, and the spine is as neutral as possible. So the hips aren't lifting too high or sinking too low. Relax through the center of the shoulders, and the gaze is down and just forward at the front of the mat. Deep inhale through the nose. And on the exhale, lower the knees to the ground, and we're going to take child's pose. So take a wide stance with your knees, letting the feet come in to touch, and then sit back onto your heels, extend the arms out long in front of you, and just let your chest melt down to the ground and rest your forehead on the ground. So child's pose is a common resting pose in yoga, and you're welcome to come here at any point during class, whether it's cued or not, and whether you need a physical, mental, emotional, or spiritual break or just rejuvenation. And this pose is also a really great restorative pose that will gently open the hips and stretch the front of the body. On the next inhale, make your way back into a tabletop position. And then tuck the toes and find your way into your downward dog on the exhale. Take a breath here. And then on the next inhale, lift the right leg high towards the sky into your three-legged dog. So you want to try to keep the hips square in line with each other. And then start to make circles with the ankle in one direction. And then reverse, making circles on the opposite side. And then point the right foot and start to bend through the right knee, opening the hip up, stacking right hip on top of left. So that means that the right knee swivels out to the right and the right heel swivels over to the left. Keep reaching the knee higher. And then come back through your three-legged dog. And then set the right foot down into your downward dog. This time we'll lift the left leg into three-legged dog and start to make circles with the ankle on one side. Remember your breath. And then reverse your direction, making circles on the opposite side. And then point the toes and bend the left knee, opening up through the hips. Try to keep pushing equally through both planted palms, keeping both arms in line with one another. And then come back into your three-legged dog, squaring the hips, and then plant the left foot down to meet the right in your downward dog. On the next inhale, shift forward into plank, and then lower the knees to the ground. Keeping the toes tucked, we're going to bend the elbows in towards the ribs, so we're bending them backwards instead of out. And lower the chest down to the ground all the way until the entire body is flat on the ground. Hands are still in position near the chest. And then untuck the toes, firmly planting the tops of the feet onto the mat. And we're going to start to lift the chest and lift the head up off of the ground by pushing firmly into the hands and pushing our body away from the mat. This is our baby Cobra pose. On the exhale, we'll slowly release, using the core muscles to lower the chest and lower the forehead to the ground. On the next inhale, we'll press firmly into the hands again, tighten the quads, and start to lift the chest up again into our Cobra pose. So more than anything, you want to try to bend more through the top of the back than through the lower back. Gaze is forward. Exhale, lower down again. And then inhale, push back up again. The shoulders are rolling back and down. The elbows are tracking in towards one another. On the exhale, release all the way down and bring the hands to the front of the mat, placing them kind of like a pillow for our head to rest on. And then go ahead and bend the knees and start to windshield wiper the legs back and forth, releasing through the lumbar spine. Remember your breath. Deep inhale through the nose and slow and long exhale through the nose. And then bring the legs back down to the ground. Tuck the toes, plant the palms on either side of the chest. We're going to lift the torso up and then back so the knees are planted. Making our way into puppy pose, we're going to stack the hips directly above the knees. Walk the hands out to the front of the mat and then let the chest melt down towards the ground, maybe resting the forehead on the ground. This pose will help us open up the shoulders, the chest, as well as the upper back. We'll be here for 3 deep breaths. And then start to rise back out of the pose, coming into your tabletop again, your neutral tabletop position. So after your alignment is set, take a deep inhale and start to reach the right hand out to the right side. And we're going to thread it through the space between the left arm and the left leg. So the right arm rests on the ground with the palm facing up, and then we'll start to melt the right shoulder and the right side of the face to the ground. Deep inhale, deep exhale. And then push into the left hand to rise out of the pose, bringing that right arm again out to the right, extending it on the inhale before planting it back down into tabletop on the exhale. On the next inhale, we'll extend the left arm out to the left and then thread it through between right arm, right leg, and then melt the left ear and the left shoulder down to rest on the ground. The left palm faces up for our gentle twist. Deep inhale, deep exhale. And then push into the right hand, rising back up. Extend the left arm out long to the left before finally planting it back down into tabletop on the exhale. From here, tuck the toes, lift the hips up and back, coming into your downward dog pose. Lift the right leg into your 3-legged dog, and then we're going to swing the right knee in towards our nose. So hug it in, use the core, and then plant the right foot in between the hands. Set the left knee down for our low lunge. Feel free to rest the hands on the front knee, and you want to strive for ankle and knee alignment in that front leg. And then lift the arms up overhead on the inhale, reaching tall, elongating through the side body. Noticing the opening in the left hip flexor. And then bring the hands back down to the front knee. And we're going to tuck the back toes and rise up off of the back knee, coming into high lunge. Once you feel stable, reach the arms back up again overhead towards the sky Make sure that both feet are facing forward and make sure that you still have that 90-degree bend in the front knee, and then try to straighten a little more through the back leg. On the next exhale, slowly lower the hands to plant on either side of the front foot. Lower the left knee back down to the ground, untucking the toes, and move the right arm to the inside of the right foot and heel toe the right foot to the outer edge of the right side of the mat, coming into lizard pose. You still want to keep that knee and ankle alignment in the right leg, so make sure that that right knee isn't splaying out to the right side. Get long through the chest, find some opening, find some space by rolling the shoulders back and maybe gazing slightly forward. And then heel toe the right foot back into the center of the mat, taking the right hand again to the outside of the right foot. And then tuck the back toes and start to inch your back foot towards the front of the mat. When it gets about halfway, lift the hips up, keeping the torso folded, coming into our pyramid pose. So again, both feet are facing forward, and we have about a foot distance between both feet, letting the torso just fall over and hang heavy like we would in a forward fold. On the next inhale, we're going to press both palms into the front shin and come into a flat back. So that means we're going to roll the shoulders back, finding length through the chest again, gazing forward. Remember your breath. And on the next exhale, fold back down into your pyramid pose. And remember that the entire foot of both feet should be firmly planted. If you can't touch the ground, that's totally okay. And maybe you need to bend the knees a little, and that's okay too. On the next inhale, step the back foot forward to meet the front in forward fold. Feel free to rock back and forth, side to side, grasp opposite elbows and rock side to side, just to release any tension that you may have in the lower back or the hamstrings or the calves. Shake the head, releasing the neck, and then nod. And then press both palms into the shins, coming into flat back again. So we roll the shoulders back, we gaze forward, trying to get as flat of a back as possible. And on the exhale, fold back in to your forward fold. On the inhale, rise all the way up, hinging at the hips, the arms reach up overhead. And on the exhale, we'll bring both hands to touch at heart center. We'll be here for a few deep breaths, so really get rooted, get grounded through your feet. Letting the thumbs slightly touch your sternum, feel the rise and the fall of the breath and the breath's power. And then release your hands to either side of the hips, turning the palms forward in our mountain pose. So again, establish your roots. And then working our way up, working the energy through the legs, engage the calves, engage the quads, engage the hips, engage the core. Roll the shoulders back again to find length through the chest, extending up through the neck and through the crown of the head. Elongate. Feel your presence and breathe into your presence. On the next deep inhale, we'll reach the arms up overhead. And on the exhale, fold forward, hinging at the hips. Inhale to halfway lift, pushing the palms into the shins. Exhale to fold again. And on the next inhale, we'll sit into our chair pose. So we'll reach the arms up overhead, sink the hips, bend the knees deeply. Find a flat back. And breathe. Release the hands to touch at heart center, but staying in your chair. And then exhale, fold forward. Inhale, halfway lift. Exhale, fold again. Plant the palms and step both feet back into your plank position. Lower the knees to the ground, and on the next exhale, we'll lower the chest to the ground, bending the elbows back like we did before, releasing the body all the way to the ground. We'll untuck the toes and press up into our Cobra pose again, lifting the chest, lifting the head, and exhale, fold back in, tuck the toes this time, and push back into our downward dog. Take a long, deep inhale through the nose. Long, deep exhale through the nose. And on the next inhale, lift your left leg into your three-legged dog, and then we'll sweep the knee forward, bringing knee to nose before stepping the left foot down between the hands, grounding the right knee, coming into our low lunge. So we'll bring the hands to the front knee at first, and work on rotating the hips. So we'll tuck the tailbone so that we get more of a stretch in that right hip flexor. Reach the arms up overhead, get long through the side body. And then we're going to tuck the back toes if they aren't already. Lift up off of the back knee, coming into our high lunge. If you need to take the hands to the front knee again to do so, then go ahead and do that. Remember your alignment in the front knee, so 90 degrees, and try to keep straightening through the back leg. And we can do that by trying to track the back heel closer towards the ground. On the next exhale, release the hands to the mat, and we're going to bring both hands to the inside of the left foot, and then heel toe the left foot to the outer left side of the mat, coming into lizard pose. So again, make sure that left knee is in line with the ankle and it's not trying to splay out. And find length in the spine all the way through the chest, through the neck, through the crown of the head. Deep yogi breaths. On the next inhale, bring your left foot back to the center of the mat, and then tuck the back toes and start to inch the back foot closer to the front of the mat. When it makes its way about halfway there, go ahead and lift the hips up into your pyramid pose. So both feet are firmly planted flat on the ground, both toes facing forward, and on the inhale, press the palms into the left shin, coming into your flat back. Exhale, fold back into pyramid pose. Try to keep both hips square, in line with one another, and let your neck hang heavy. And then go ahead and step the back foot forward, forward fold. Inhale to rise all the way up to stand, arms reach up. Exhale to fold again. Inhale to halfway lift. Exhale to fold back in. Bend the knees, plant the palms, step both feet back into your plank position. And this time on the exhale, without bending the knees, we're going to reverse push-up. So bend the elbows in towards the ribs, lowering the entire body at the same time to the ground. On our inhale, we're going to rise up into upward dog, so with straight arms if that's accessible. If not, stay in your Cobra pose. And then exhale, find your way into your downward dog. So that was your full Vinyasa flow. Deep inhale. And on the exhale, release the knees to the ground. We're going to find our way into a seated position. So extend the legs out long and flex the feet, engage the quads, and plant the palms on either side of the hips. Get long through the torso, extending all the way through the spine, through the neck, through the crown of the head, finding good posture. And we'll inhale, elongate through the spine, and exhale, start to walk the fingertips forward towards the feet. For every inhale, you'll lengthen more through the spine, and for every exhale, you'll walk the fingertips a little bit closer to the feet. So inhale, lengthen, exhale, fold, and keep going. If you need to put a slight bend in the knees, that is perfectly acceptable. And if you can grasp onto the feet, then feel free to go ahead and do so. So More so than trying to stretch the legs and the hamstrings, we're actually trying to stretch the back muscles. Slowly use the breath to start to rise back up out of the pose. And then bend the knees, bringing the soles of the feet to the ground. Bring the arms out long in front of you, and we're going to start to curl down one vertebra at a time. So use the core to find your way into a position on your back, slow and steady. Once you get there, keep the knees bent and start to windshield wiper the knees back and forth. If you want to also get an opening through your upper body, then we'll bring our arms into cactus pose. So to do that, you'll bring your arms to a T with palms facing up, and then bend the elbows so that both arms are in 90-degree angles. And then come back through center and extend the left leg out long to rest on the ground, and start to lift the right leg still in 90 degrees. And we'll inhale deeply, and on the exhale start to guide that right knee over to the left side. So if you want to stack the hips, that's acceptable. So we're just going for a really gentle opening twist. And maybe start to gaze over the right shoulder. Be mindful of your breath. Deep inhale. Deep exhale. The next inhale brings us back through center. And this time we'll extend the right leg out long. Bring the left knee to bend 90 degrees, lifting it off of the ground. Inhale. And on the exhale, start to twist over to the right side, letting the left knee fall over, letting gravity draw it towards the ground. And maybe we start to gaze over to the left this time. Deep inhale. Deep exhale. And then use the core to bring you back through center again. This time we'll hug both knees in towards the chest and just slightly rock side to side, making any last few movements that you may need to take. Then bring the feet to the ground, bring the soles of the feet to touch, and with bent knees, let the knees splay open. This is our reclined Baddha Konasana pose, a gentle hip opener. From here, bring one hand to your heart and the other to your belly. Again, feeling the rise and the fall of the breath, feeling the heartbeat. And again, your presentness. And then release both legs out long. We'll set up for Savasana, our final resting pose. Let the arms rest by the sides. Let the eyes close. Let gravity take over. And without manipulating the breath anymore, just let it go on autopilot and just be for a few moments of doing nothing, thinking about nothing. You deserve this moment of physical, mental, spiritual rejuvenation. So just accept it. Accept the vulnerability of this position. Stay here for as long as you like, and when you're ready to emerge from the pose, bend the knees, bringing the soles of the feet to the ground. Wiggle the fingers and the toes, just waking the body back up. And then roll over onto one side into a fetal position, feeling the support of the ground beneath you. And then press the ground away from you, lifting up into a seated position. Any comfortable seated position, keeping the eyes closed. Bring the hands to touch at heart center. Take a deep inhale through the nose. A deep exhale through the nose to seal your practice. Thank you so much for practicing with me. Namaste.